Iain Duncan Smith, whose resignation over disability benefit cuts on Friday night has prompted the worst crisis David Cameron has faced as Prime Minister, and raised questions, even for Tories, about whether the Chancellor is fit to continue in office. So, how did the Prime Minister respond today to the charge from Duncan Smith that his government doesn't care enough about poor people?
My right honourable friend, the member for Chingford and Woodford Green, spent almost a decade campaigning for welfare reform and improving people's life chances, and he has spent the last 6 years implementing those policies in government. My right honourable friend contributed an enormous amount to the work of this government, and he can be proud of what he achieved.
So in burying Duncan Smith, the Prime Minister praised him. But he wasn't having any of Duncan Smith's criticism that George Osborne puts too much stress on cutting the deficit and not enough on rational reform of welfare.
None of this would be possible if it wasn't for the actions of this government and the work of my right honourable friend the Chancellor in turning our economy around. So securing our economy, extending opportunity. We will continue with this approach in full because we are a modern, compassionate, one-nation Conservative government, and I commend this statement to the House.
But Labour's leader tried not to show any compassion to the Chancellor.
The budget has a big hole in it. It's really up to the Prime Minister to persuade his great friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, to either come here and explain how he's going to fill that hole, or perhaps he should consider his position and look for something else to do.
The Secretary of State for Work and Pensions.
And then came capitulation from Duncan Smith's successor. The disability cut has gone forever, he confirmed, and there'd be no other welfare cuts to fill a £1.3 billion a year hole in the budget caused by this U-turn of U-turns.
I am absolutely clear, Mr Speaker, that a compassionate and fair welfare system should not just be about numbers. Behind every statistic, there is a human being. And perhaps sometimes in government we forget that.
Boris, who shares Duncan Smith's passion for the UK to leave the EU, does he think his friend was also right to leave government?
It would have been much better, quite frankly, if he'd stayed in and fought his point of view from within the cabinet.
Duncan Smith may have gone, but when it comes to that infamous disability cut, Cameron and Osborne have surrendered, and he seems to have won. Robert Peston.